Hello and welcome to In the Light, Growing Your Soul with me, Anna Isabel. And I have an expert on coincidence with me today. His name is Bernard Beitman. Hello, Bernard.
Good evening, good afternoon, good morning. Well, I'm at noon right now. Glad to be with you, Anna.
Well, I was just thinking perhaps I should have called you Bernard, and then that would have sounded more familiar.
No. I love being called Bernard by the Brits. It's just it's music to my ears. So please call me Bernard. Last name is Beitman.
Oh, now I have your book here,
Good.
which is absolutely fascinating. It's called Meaningful Coincidences. And so maybe it would be good because we all think we know what a coincidence is, but let's have the definition. What is a coincidence?
Well, there's a difference between a coincidence and a meaningful coincidence, and it's important to look at adjectives. I'm a writer, so there's a noun and there's an adjective. So the word coincidence is a commonly used out there. It means two events coming together in a surprising and unexpected way that seem to have a low probability. A meaningful coincidence is one of those that seems to have meaning to the person involved, like it has something to do with me and my life story, or it has some clue to how reality works, because human beings have been using meaningful coincidences like astrology, for example, just to pull one out of the hat somewhere to try to understand how reality works. But those are two meaningful forms. A lot of times people say, oh, it's just a coincidence, or it's a mere coincidence. And that is to suggest it's all random and there's no meaning in them. But even statisticians, when you kind of scrape the fuzz off of their randomness ideas, can say that even if it's random, okay, it still can have some personal meaning to you.
So are you saying that we are the ones who attribute meaning to a coincidence, or is there meaning behind the coincidence?
Being as you're you, I don't know if you could put that question without an or in there. There, in order for there to be meaning to you or whoever's watching this, you got to like find it. You got to see it for yourself. So we perceive the meaning, we deduce the meaning, we grab the meaning, but how much of it we make up and how much is out there is part of the fun of all this. Some people think it's if you don't notice it, it didn't happen, and other people say no, if it's still happening, but you didn't notice it. So it's still, there's something else going on here. We all know that, and try to figure out what meaning is out there, and then what meaning we attribute to it, mistakenly or accurately. And how do you define those things are really important. But it's part of the enjoyment of this for me, is to be able to try to understand the meaning of meaning.
I like that. I like that very much. And I guess one of the things I'm enjoying about your book is that you're doing more than playing with the idea. You're actually really researching it, collecting data on it. And so you have lots of different type of coincidences that you talk about in your book. So tell us about some of the different types of coincidence.
Well, thanks for that description, because I think my book, Meaningful Coincidences, How and Why Synchronicity and Serendipity Happen. I think what I've tried to do there is begin the foundation for a new science of meaningful coincidences. And it's important to be able to say why I use the term meaningful coincidence. Jung did not use the word synchronicity to mean meaningful coincidence. He meant it to mean an explanation for them. Synchronicity was an acausal connecting principle for him, but they become tied together. And synchronicity itself is limited in what most people mean by it. Serendipity covers another aspect of meaningful coincidences. So these are two overlapping but separate kinds of meaningful coincidence. Serendipity tends to be happy accidents. You find something that you weren't looking for, but there it is and you needed it. Or you find something you're looking for and you find it in a weird way. That tends to be serendipity. Synchronicity tends to be about psychological, spiritual, and interpersonal coincidences. That's what Jung was a therapist, so that's what he tended to emphasize. Serendipity tends to be about finding ideas or making discoveries. If you look at the Nobel Prize winners, they're going to tell you off the record somewhat that we just stumbled upon this one. It was there, and what it takes is be able to notice that there was something there. But how it got there, there's all kinds of ways to figure out how penicillin mold got into a petri dish in a London hospital in 1929 for Alexander to find the mold juice killing some bacteria. I mean, the ways that got to happen is who knows, but he noticed it. So you need to have what some people have called the sagacity. You have to have the wisdom to notice that there's something important there. And that tends to be somewhat different from synchronicity. And I've added two more. I've added, kind of push one in, seriality. Seriality is really popular these days in the terms of angel numbers. People love these angel numbers are usually 1111, 1111, or 333 or 555. And they are series that anybody could see. You see the 1111, you see them, but other people can see them. Synchronicity and serendipity usually involve a mental event matching an environmental event, an objective event. Seriality, you can everybody could see if you looked. And the final one is one I've added, simulpathity. Simulpathity is feeling the pain of a loved one at a distance. What? Feeling the pain of a loved one at a distance? Well, it happened to me. It happened with my father. He was choking on his own blood and dying 3,000 miles away from where I was, and I was choking uncontrollably. And I didn't find out until my brother called. It was around the same time, 11 p.m. San Francisco time and 2 a.m. Wilmington, Delaware time. He was choking, I was choking. So I wondered if that happened with other people. It does. This is not uncommon.
No, I have countless accounts of that people have shared with me over time, and it's a very peculiar thing too, because it makes me think about how there's reports of women's cycles being synchronized if they're living together, and also pets acquiring symptoms similar to symptoms that you're having. It's a very peculiar thing, but it does happen, and it makes you, it's those things that make you wonder. So just a little example of, I guess, synchronicity that happened whilst I was reading your book on meaningful coincidences.
I like those. I like those. Go ahead.
I'm reading your book about meaningful coincidence, and there's a big thunderstorm that's breaking. And I'm thinking of a friend whose dog is afraid of thunder. And as I'm thinking about her, I get a picture of her dogs, very relaxed and happy. And I'm thinking, that's interesting, because that's another one of those little ones. I was thinking of so-and-so, and I hear from them at that particular moment. But what made me smile was that it happened not at any other time of the day, but when I'm reading your book on meaningful coincidences.
Yeah, and part of part of that is to say, what is the meaning to you, Anna Isabel, of that coincidence?
So to me, I think that there's an element that seems magical to me, which is, it feels as though something is mirroring back to me my thoughts. And that is an experience that happens to me on a regular basis, where I'm thinking something and something happens that echoes it back, mirrors it back to me. And when that happens, which I can go through phases where it happens daily, and sometimes more than once, and then it doesn't happen for ages. But when it happens, it feels like, oh, okay, maybe this is a little bit of encouragement. You know, I'm heading in the right direction, maybe. And time will tell.
Well, what you just said, I'm on the right path, I'm headed in the right direction, is one of the most common uses of meaningful coincidences, and particularly what people call angel numbers does that for people. I feel it. You feel like that somebody's watching over you, and in this way saying you're in a good place, keep doing what you're doing. It's very encouraging for the heart to feel that kind of tap on the shoulder and a whisper in your ear saying, you're doing the right thing, keep going. Now I don't do that. I can do that, but I try to figure out how that stuff works. Now, a very nice statistician at Cambridge, in your country, Cambridge University, was very kind to tell me, he studies uncertainty, very kind to tell me that if you keep looking for how to explain these things, it'll make you crazy. I like that one. You can get a little crazy trying to figure this stuff out, but it's still there to be figured out. So when you get the photograph of the dog that you're thinking about, what it suggests is that our minds are far more interconnected than we realize. And that's a major lesson of meaningful coincidences, is the fact that we are connected with each other. And you can say the universe made that happen. The universe is very large. And we like to think that the universe, as large as it is paying attention to little old me doing what I'm doing. Okay, you can think that, just like some people think the election of Donald Trump was, on the non-election of Donald Trump was stolen. You can have your own belief. I can't change that, but I can suggest to you there are probably more scientific ways of thinking about how you think of something and then it happens, because I think we share a mental atmosphere with each other. I call it the psychosphere. It's been called the noosphere. The psychosphere term has been around a long time. I didn't realize that until I looked around. That simultaneous discoveries, people find things without knowing that somebody else has found it. And all that happens in this mental atmosphere, this place around us, like our air atmosphere, where energy and information are floating around and we pick it up. And now I have a model that I'm going to present sometime on my own YouTube channel about how this stuff works, how telepathy works. And so let me try it out with you. Do you believe you have a higher self, Anna Isabel?
Yes, I do.
Could you please describe that higher self?
Well, that, I guess, is defined in different ways by different people.
Oh, yes.
But to me, it is a part of me that has a greater understanding and perhaps objectivity than my emotional self might have. So other people might call it a sense of spirit, or the soul. I could call it the higher self. That, yes, I do believe that.
Yeah, I so appreciate your saying let me say, a higher perspective, a clear-sighted perspective than your emotional self on Earth here might be. Well, just imagine that there's a thread, a current coming out of the mind of your brain, your brain encased of your brain, but there's a mind around you too, and that mind is connected by some kind of thread to your higher self, and there's communication through that thread, through that current conducting thread to your higher self. And I'm just saying the higher self is up there in our mental atmosphere. It's real, it's there. It's higher, so it has a clearer perspective on what's going on with you. And it's very invested in you. It doesn't have to be the universe doing it. It can be an aspect of yourself doing it up in the psychosphere, being able to look to see things more clearly than you're able to see them on this flat planed Earth crust.
So are you then saying that you believe that the different types of meaningful coincidence are orchestrated by the higher self? So, because for me, telepathy explains the connection, and I absolutely believe it, between people, so that you think about them and they turn up, whether by phone or in person or whatever. But for me, the essence of timing is also important, because it's in the moment that your awareness is drawn to something. And I think that that's also behind serendipity too. It's that timing. And perhaps there's an element of the individual being ready to see something that's always been there and they haven't seen it before, maybe. But I do think that there's something about timing there. And my question then is this, do you think, the higher self who is drawing awareness towards these events?
That's so important, Anna, Isabel. That's so important. You don't have a coincidence, a synchronicity, serendipity, unless you're open to seeing it. And that openness comes not, I think, from your higher self necessarily, but from your own willingness here on Earth to look and be open to the possibility that weird stuff can happen. So it starts with your own ability to be aware.
So just coming back to the meaning behind meaningful coincidences, how would you distinguish between them and, say, omens and signs?
Omens are part of meaningful coincidences. It covers a wide variety of things, including contact, potential contact, synchronicity with birds, maybe representing somebody who's died, trying to communicate to you. I use the term coincidence because it covers a lot of parapsychological ideas with a word that people generally accept. I mean, this is I'm in the PR business here with the meaningful coincidences. I'm trying to get the idea out there to a large population. So synchronicity is kind of a woo-woo term, serendipity less so. Meaningful coincidences sounds like regular English speech. So I tend to be able to use those simple terms.
So you've talked about how they can be useful in some ways. How do you use them? And what got you into this in the first place?
Well, you can guess. I've had a few in my life. You can guess. That would be a good guess. I mean, when you get slapped around by these things, and they in your face, and you get them, you say, well, wait a minute, this is weird. So I'm generally curious, and I went to some of America's finest schools, Yale and Stanford, and a very good small college, Swarthmore, and one of my best educations took place on Haight Street in the late 60s, where I was a part-time hippie. And taking psychedelics and smoking marijuana and looking around and saying, hey, there's some other weird stuff going on around here. Look at it all. I had to stop myself from, quote, being blown out by all the coincidences. So I've had a lot of them, and they've particularly increased now that I've written 2 books on the subject here in Charlottesville, Virginia, and I'm doing a podcast that's got over 100 episodes now, and one before there was audio, 137 of them, and I've got a Psychology Today blog, and I've started the Coincidence Project, which is to increase awareness of meaningful coincidences. So guess what, Anna Isabel? I'm seeing a lot of coincidences. And why would that be? Well, I'm in the middle of them right now. They're like swirling around. I'm like Tinkerbell spreading the fairy dust of synchronicity around with other people as well as for myself. So I'm into it because I'm into it. I'm really into it. And I can tell you I have a lot of coincidences, but perhaps you will read my next book, which is all about my own coincidences. And I've been going through this thing. I'm like editing it now. I've got a pretty good draft. And what I'm seeing, and this is what I encourage you and maybe other people to do, is you write these things down and you see them over your lifetime, not just what happened yesterday or this week or this month, but over your lifetime. And I suggest you look for patterns within your coincidence patterns. And I'm seeing patterns I didn't see before. And one of them is knock, knock. Who's there? Bernie. Oh, Bernie who? Well, I don't know who I am right now, but maybe there's something on the other side of this door that can be of interest to me. And I've knocked on lots of doors and ran into LSD and took that. And I've knocked on another door and got into psychedelic research in Boston, knocked on another door and found a research protocol that got me to be chairman of psychiatry at the University of Missouri, Columbia, and a couple other ones. So that I've noticed that this willingness to knock and to ask is one of the basic patterns of mine, but it's not just me, but this is a basic coincidence pattern. So I'm noticing these and trying to understand the meaning of door knocking. A Hebrew letter Daleth, which is associated with the 4th tarot card, which I have learned to be able to read, means door. So I'm trying to be able to understand what the door opening is. One door opens, one door closes, another opens. That's been around for a long time. So this is where I am right now, is immersed in my own coincidences, just by being in the middle of so much coincidence activity, and now writing my own coincidence biography so that they are continuing to happen, and I'm continuing to try to understand the patterns of them, which then could give some idea about how they work.
Is there a particular personality type that is more prone to experiences of this type?
Aha. Aha. Well, yes. You happen to read my book, you may have noticed that in there. There's more to it. If you can say that people who, we have data that shows people who are describe themselves as more spiritual tend to see more. People who describe themselves as more religious tend to see more, but not as much as the spiritual group reported. But one of the personality types are people who are self-referential. That is, they refer things around them to themselves. So you're talking over there with each other, but you're really talking about me, kind of thing. It gets into the paranoid direction, but these are with normal college students that we did the research. So it's a kind of normal predisposition, but that's the basis of meaningful coincidences, usually connecting something external with something that you're thinking about. So a personality type that tends to look in that way, people who are self-referential, are going to see more meaningful coincidences.
See, when you put it like that,
Yes.
it makes me think that we're talking about people who are somewhat self-centered. But that's not really what we're talking about, is it?
Well, you're right. You have to be somewhat self-centered to do this. In other words, you have to be looking at your own mind and seeing what's going on in there and connect that with what's out there. What the meaningful coincidence thing can become very self-centered. It can become all about me. I can't tell you how many emails I get from people who say, "Hey, Dr. Beitman, I'm so glad I found you. I have the most amazing coincidences, and they're going to help you with your research. And I've got to tell you all about them because they are so amazing," which implies the way they tell me that they're really amazing and they're wonderful people and they're special. And some of them send me these emails that are like gargantuan, and they think that I want to read them because they're so important. So there is a grandiosity that comes with some people that makes them self-centered before and afterwards or during. I mean, I don't know how they come together. So there is a self-centeredness as a risk to being in the coincidence business. So that part of it is right. But what you want to recognize is that if you think of something like the dog photo and then you get it, then your mind, as the mind mirroring mind person that you are, then your mind is more involved, connected to your environment than we are told. You are not just a mind on an island or in an island. You are connected to what's around you. So there has to become a yin yang balance between your mind and what's around you. So you begin to see that we're all connected, not just know it, but to experience it and then be able to be separate. So there's a nice tension between becoming part of it all and then being separate from it all. And this is the way we evolve. This is how individuation takes place, how we become more spiritual, more psychological, more interpersonally better.
Yes, because the danger is that we begin to feel that we have become elevated above others because there's something out there that is singling us out for special attention, when actually meaningful coincidences are part of life potentially for everyone. So we're all being singled out for special attention because we're all part of something and we're all connected. And that makes us all equally special, perhaps.
Well, as maybe you didn't get to this, but I try to emphasize in my book, we're all unique. We're all special. Nobody else is standing or sitting where you are right now, or where I am right now. So we're unique, but we're similarly unique in many ways.
Yeah.
Then there are people who become more developed, and some of them are more uniquely unique than others. So be able to do the balance of the opposites like this is part of what coincidences make us do. To know that I'm unique and that I'm unique in my own way, but there are also people who are more unique in some ways than I am, so that I'm not that special. And one of the big lessons that you're implying here is if something weird happened to me, it has already happened to somebody, it's happening to somebody now, or it's going to happen to somebody, that you are not unique in your weird experiences. So I get a kick now out of inventing words like the psychosphere and simulpathity, and then finding out they've been invented already, or with simulpathity was invented to mean just the same thing I mean 2 or 3 years after I came up with it. So they're all, we're all in this together, is what the meaningful coincidence end up telling us.
I like that. And we are all in this together because indeed we are. We share the planet and we share a lot more, it seems. So the book that we are discussing today is called Meaningful Coincidences, and I will be putting a link to it in the description box. Bernard, if people wanted to find out more about your work, how do they do that?
They can say Bernard and I'll like it, but they they can put my name, Bernard Beitman, in their search engine, and they'll come up with me in various ways. If you want to, you can get to my website, which is the website is called coincider.com, COINCIDER. Coincider. A coincider is someone who experiences coincidences, and they're also coinciders. They're inside the coincidence thing together. So that's my website. I started the Coincidence Project, so you can get to that with thecoincidenceproject.net. And you can just go to Amazon and look up, put my name in there, and you'll find my book. And I hope you buy it, and I hope you contact me. And I hope that some of you will come to the Coincidence Cafe, which meets every third Saturday of the month from 11 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. Eastern Time, where those of you who are feeling isolated because you think you're the only one having meaningful coincidences, because a lot of people do feel that way, we gather people together and we tell each other coincidence stories at the Coincidence Cafe. Again, Saturday's the third Saturday of the month. This coming Saturday, next week, we're having one. This coming Saturday, we're having one at 11 o'clock. And we just try to tell each other coincidence stories, and to say, not in some grand way, which is also true, you are not alone. No, you are not alone. Well, we'll show you that you're not alone. We'll show you you're not alone. Come to the Coincidence Cafe. I mean, there's some people just, they're so gratified to know there are other people thinking weird stuff like this. And as you said, they're available to all of us. They're common. And one of the most important discoveries I made recently is that Generation Z, people in their 20s for the most part, are talking a lot about synchronicity. And I get people who think, well, you got to be old, you got to be like experienced, you got to have you have that worldliness to be able to nope. It turns out that 11th graders know something about this, because I heard one from one that said, "Oh, that's what happens," and it was a really good one. And now I'm on TikTok, and they got people talking about just what you started talking about, the mirroring coincidences. I've heard one say, "Mirror coincidence," just like you. I said, "Oh, well, okay, this is out there now, and we gotta connect with them."
Indeed. Wonderful. I'll be sure to put a link to your websites also in the description box. Thank you so much for your time today, Bernard.
You're very welcome, Anna Isabel. It was a pleasure talking with you.
And thank you all for watching. Until next time, have a great week. Bye.